We are living in unprecedented times. No matter what industry you come from, we must all review, rethink, and reinvent ourselves. Are you an entrepreneur that is trying to adapt your business to the new norm? Well, you are listening to the 2020 Entrepreneur, a podcast that will motivate you and have you think outside of the box. My name is Hugo Almeida, and with over 30 years of being an entrepreneur, I am here to share and inspire you with my experiences and help invent a new you. Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to T20E World. Hugo here, and I got a good friend with me today, Jeff Zivi.
Hey, Hugh, how you doing?
Very good, Jeff. Listen, thank you so much, first off, for being in our studios and taking time out of that busy schedule that you live to come on in person and kind of share your knowledge with us all.
You're very welcome. And, I'm not all that busy. I'd like to project that as a mystique, but I have plenty of time for this.
So for those that are listening, just want to say this is going uncensored. We're going live here, and we're just going to let this podcast rock and roll. Jeff Zivi is the man, the myth, the legend in communication industry. And not only that, but in corporate America. And today's topic is going to be corporate America, then versus now. Jeff, what do you think about that, huh?
I think a lot of changes. That's what I think when you say that. Big differences. I started in 1990. I think we were just talking about that around later 90s, 98. And I mean, night and day as compared to then and cut to 30 years later and now.
Dude, I still remember when we first met. I was always an international guy coming into Lucent Technology. Remember that?
Oh, I remember. How could I forget? Yeah.
I remember sitting in my first meeting with Jeff Zivi. And again, corporate guy running an international department, coming into Lucent Technology, now working domestically, and just trying to do all the right things in that meeting. And I remember Jeff pulling me to the side and saying, "The fuck are you doing?"
Yeah, you were doing it all wrong.
You were doing it all wrong.
By trying to do it right, you were completely doing it wrong. Yeah.
One of my buddies, we got so many years under our belt together in our industry. We both came up in our careers in the sales side of the things. We've seen the good, the bad, and we lived the ugly in corporate America. So today, why do I want to share a little bit about the differences between corporate America then and now with all our listeners? Well, like Jeff said a little bit ago, times have changed. I mean, it's freaking crazy. It's literally black and white now. When we grew up in the 90s, we worked corporate America, grew in the industry.
Right.
During a time where the evolution of communication evolved so fast, just from 93 to about, 2000 or so, where we went from receiving little telexgrams on a little sheet of paper, then receiving emails and fax machines coming out.
Right.
To voice over IP.
Right. You had cell phones in there. When I started, there weren't even cell phones. You wanted, there were pay phones. If you were on the road and you wanted to make a phone call, you better stop somewhere, borrow a phone, or a pay phone or something like that, or just check voicemail. And, when you said you were on the road, that meant you were incommunicado for a while. No one, hey, guy's on the road. How are we going to get a hold of him? He's in the car. What do you expect?
Yeah, but Jeff, you're still like that.
True. Well, I know, but now I have no reason to justify that. I can't back that up because of the fact that they can get me any minute of any email, text, cell phone. There is no...
Can't hide.
I miss those days. Those blank times that I'm on the road.
Tell the truth. You're one of those guys with the beeper.
Oh, yeah, I had a beeper. Oh, yeah. I used to be terrified of that thing because, if somebody's calling you, I don't know what it's about. I just know that, and then they might put in 911, which means emergency, which means it's really important, and I got to figure it out. I got to go find a phone. Yeah, and then hope, and I have nothing with me. I have no laptop because we weren't doing those. Now I'm on the road somewhere, and I got to hope that I can resolve whatever situation, whatever customer is calling me at that moment with what I got. It could be, hey, our system's down. I'm like, that's going to be another 5 phone calls I got to make from this payphone to try and resolve that situation.
Better have a lot of change.
Exactly. Change, but we always carry change.
Was it 10 cents or 25 cents?
Back then, I think it was like 25 cents. It started at 10 and it got up to 25 pretty quickly.
Look where we are today, huh?
Today, so that's one problem that's eliminated.
Yeah,
there's more problems. There's different problems, but not that one anymore.
Most of our listeners today, right, we're kind of filling you in on the things that we dealt with just a few decades ago. Not that long ago when you think about it. Most of our listeners today grew up in the digital era. Now, good or bad, I don't know. I've got both sides of the coin I could talk about, because I think the ability to be able to be in communication is a great thing. But at the same token, the accessibility of having everything at your fingertips could also be the worst nightmare.
Right.
Yes or no?
I absolutely agree. I mean, it's great that the technology is mind-blowing now, but it's also, I almost feel like a doctor. You're on call 24 hours a day. I mean, back then, the workday stopped at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. That was, the weekends were the weekends. But now you can, with your smartphone alone, you can respond anytime, anywhere, and that's expected. That's just a given. I know people that retired back at the day, and they're like, why are you returning a text at 8 o'clock at night, or a voicemail, or an email at 9 o'clock at night? That's because that's the world we live in now. You're thinking of the world back in the mid-'90s when that would be crazy to do that, even if you could. And now that's the way it is. So it's great that we have this technology, but it's also a higher demand. It's a higher level of expectation.
Accessibility.
Like. Accessibility is, it's why didn't you get back to me? I know you got it.
Yeah, but why don't you pick up my phone calls?
Yeah.
I don't get it, Jeff.
Right. Oh, you specifically?
No,
yeah.
I leave you messages all the freaking time. You know that.
Right. I don't get those. Yeah. I just don't. I don't know why that happens. I got to talk to my provider on that. Yeah. I used to use that as an excuse occasionally. I never got that. Because sometimes you would, even before voicemail, when we were starting out, was a big thing. But even before that, you would leave a message with somebody, with an assistant, a secretary, an attendant, and you would say, they would just write it out. And you could say occasionally, I never got that. They never gave that to me. Who did you talk to? And then voicemail came, and that became, less of a thing. You could pretend that you didn't get, etc. Now, no one's even using. I think I'm one of the few that even use voicemail. And when I do it, I text somebody to say, hey, I just left you a voicemail. Please check it. But I think that's a dying form. In a couple of years, I don't think we're even going to see voicemail anymore. It'll just be text.
I think so. Anyway, listen, let's talk a little bit about when we were starting our careers early on, where we are today. Now, we talked about this early on before we launched this podcast, and we talked about the loyalty to corporations and vice versa, right?
Right.
The corporations, corporate America was so loyal to their employees, and we started noticing change. Granted, the pressures, right? Losing technologies, eventually breaking out into small different companies. We were on the communications side. We wound up spinning off into Avaya, which is still a leading communication company here in the U.S.
Allegedly.
Let's be nice here.
I understand.
Yes.
It is.
Yes. But there used to be a sense of loyalty from both sides.
Right.
We understand Wall Street and everything, and our numbers had to be up there. Our quotas, God knows, was up there. We had to deliver numbers.
Right.
And I'll tell you, that kind of set the precedent for us, and
right.
And what we had to do as salespeople. And today, though, during those years, I remember we would just be a hero one week, and we would have to cover our ass the following week. We were almost at the door.
And it could change that quickly. A hero on Tuesday and in the doghouse on Thursday, and then right back again.
We had to make up those numbers that we lost, those deals that didn't close, and we had to explain why. And listen, I know a lot of the people out there in sales today, corporate America, you're living it every day today. I get that. Back then, it was a little bit different. We started seeing the evolution of the change and the pressures from corporate, right? Where all of a sudden, maybe not so loyal to the employee, right?
Right.
You didn't fulfill the numbers, someone's head was going to roll, man.
Exactly. And there's still tremendous pressure on numbers. I mean, that's the deal when you sign up for sales. It's always going to be about a number. It's always going to be about a quota. You're only as good as your last forecast, your last revenue quarter or month or whatever it is that you're being evaluated on. But I feel the difference is you were more protected back then, in that the longer you were with a company, the more seniority you had, the more you felt secure, the more valuable you were to that company. So if a 10-year guy is better than a 5-year guy, a 15-year guy is better than a 10-year guy, so on and so forth. And that gave you some breathing room on that, hey, look, I'm going to give everything I can to this company, and I'm going to sell everything, but I'm going to have a down year at some point. But I'm not that worried about it.
Unacceptable.
Yeah. Oh. But that changed. That was when I started in the 90s. That was the deal. You had that job for life banner that was, unofficial, but that was the deal. And by the end of the 90s into the 2000s, the new millennium, that was no longer the game. This was, hey, look, the more years you had probably hurt you more than helped you. And now we're in a world where it's just changed. That's a bad thing. They want people changing constantly. You're in a job for 5 years, you leave the company, you get some experience elsewhere, you try and get a promotion, You go to company B, then you go to company C. That's the guy they want, but you don't ever, that relationship with the company where you're very loyal to the company and the company's loyal to you, that's where I felt the safest, and that's probably where I was probably the happiest over
I still
over time.
remember the meeting when we spun off into Avaya. Remember our new VP, John Rooney. Great guy. John, by the way, if you're listening, hello from Jeb, Zivi, and Hugo here. But I remember when he went around the room with all of the New Jersey sales and New York sales, I think, and he wanted everybody to stand up, introduce themselves, and give us the years that they have worked, whether it was AT&T, Lucent, and Avaya, right? So you just totaled up the numbers of years that you actually were employed. Most of them were new players in the industry, average of 4 or 5. We got around the table, I remember, and Jeff Zivi was just like hiding in a corner. I couldn't understand why. For a guy that loves to talk out in front of everybody, he just was hiding in a corner. And he told me later, he's like, dude, listen, you don't want to say anything over 10 years. It's a sign that's not good.
Right. That's when the numbers were working against you. And I think I had at that point maybe 15. I knocked it down to like 10 or 9. And then our boss came up to us and said, Jeff, I'm a little bit confused. I've been with the company about 13 years, and you started 4 years before I did. How do you have 9 years? And I said, hey, look, we all know what the game is now. I'm not going to advertise that I'm a 15-year guy where that's now a negative. And that was a joke, but it's not really a joke. That's the way the corporation shifted. Is they want, change. They want younger. That's a guy who's stuck in his rut and is not changing. He's doing the same thing for too long. We need somebody else who's been in that job for 3 years, and then he's going to move on to a different job and a different company, and that's valuable to them. I liked it the old way. I think it was more valuable when you got to know the company, you got to know the business, and there was really a relationship there with your customers and the company, but that's just not the way it is anymore. I miss it, but those days are long gone.
What are you trying to say? Your numbers are just not there now?
They're there, but they don't really care. That's just expected. I felt like they appreciated it more when they were there in the 90s than they are now. I'm with a different company, and I like the company. They've been good to me. I've been there for about 10 years, and that's getting to be a little bit long in the tooth. 10 years with the company I'm with now. Should I say the company, or does it matter?
Share it with us.
Yeah, NEC. It's a
NEC.
Japanese company, and I'm probably low man on the totem pole. They didn't get the message that the more years you have, it's not good, because they got people with 30 years in that company. So somehow they didn't. I don't know how they're not on the same plane with everybody else.
Japanese companies.
But
love them. I worked for Matsushita. I had a great run there, ran the international department there. I love the culture.
Right. It's a good one thing I can think of that is two things that we lost when we did this is employee loyalty and customer loyalty, because your customers were locked to you and to that company, because now it's more of just, we're going to get a new account manager, we're going to get somebody new, those customers will either stay or they won't. There's not that relationship that you had with your existing customers, which is always your base accounts. Those are the easiest guys to sell to. And it's just not looked the same way with constant turnover and things like that. The corporations have decided that this is the way to go for the most part. I don't quite get it. I think it was better the other way, but I understand the need for change. The problem with the old system was also you had people who were very complacent, and that once you got past 20 years, you were locked. Yeah. Like you were considered it was like having tenure, and I'm not saying tenure is a bad thing, but you were considered untouchable, and you could just coast and they weren't going to they would just bounce you around from department to department, waiting you out until you officially retired. And there was a decent amount of those people, and that was the justification they used to kind of do away with that system. I feel they could have kind of compromised a little bit.
There was no compromising.
Yeah, there was. We're scrapping the whole thing. Yeah. We're wiping it. That's it.
That's it.
They ruined it for everybody. But there was some of that we just had people that probably were just not putting in the kind of effort that they used to, and weren't learning the technologies or wanted to learn and weren't trying as much.
In any company, I remember this, and you and I always discussed this. It was always people, and I call it hiding, right?
Right.
So they would do their 2 years in one department. They knew that no one's going to bother them at least 6 months because they're learning it, do their gig, do it half-ass, move on to the next opportunity within a large corporation. Honestly, those days are kind of gone.
Right. They're gone.
I mean, listen, you got to hustle out there now. They expect numbers to hit. Right. And you know what? Everybody that goes in understands your number's not there.
Don't take it. Right.
Listen, you're going to be looking for another job.
That's it. They'll tell you that right up front.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Granted, Jeff, that today's environment is so much more relaxed, everything's like the Google rooms, right? The WeWorks of New York City and stuff, where just a relaxed, chillaxed type of an environment. Everybody could wear whatever it is. There's dogs that are coming into corporations nowadays. Yeah. Listen, our company here is pet friendly, but we don't have a bunch of dogs coming in.
Right.
But it's changed so much.
It
But at
has.
the same token, you know, there's a lot of pressure, lots of pressure in corporate America today to deliver those numbers.
Right. That's all it is.
Wall
It's
Street.
numbers, numbers, numbers. And but that's, that is the deal that I signed up for. And I accept that. I did prefer it the other way. But that's
Wait.
the game is changed.
What do you mean the other way?
The other way was when, right now, if I have a couple of bad months, that could be it. Back then, you cut to 20 years ago, I have a couple of bad months, they're not going to get rid of me. It's like, hey, look, they know that I've got a 5-year record or a 10-year record. They know, hey, look, Jeff's having an off year. He'll bounce back. We're not just going to get rid of him. That's a change. But that's for everybody. It wasn't, that's the game. It's a level playing field for everybody.
I'll tell you. I remember leaving, when it was my time to leave Avaya, I still remember I worked on a large $2 million opportunity. As I left, the next guy that just stepped into to backfill my shoes, that deal happened to close. Would you believe the phone calls I received? He was the hero in that department. And no one could understand, how do you close a $2 million deal so quickly with only 2 weeks experience?
Yeah, exactly.
He took all the credit.
The guy was that good.
He was that good?
He was that good. That's a closer. They got
Poor
themselves
Hugo,
a closer.
2 years of working on that damn deal, meeting constantly and
Right.
Briefing after briefing, international 5-pole meetings we used to have. Oh, my God.
Right. And the fact that the guy who closed it then went in and said, somebody remind me, what did we sell again? What was, I'm not 100% sure what we closed.
Well,
didn't matter.
Hey, listen, I just
know
want
it
my
was big.
commission check. That's all I care about.
Yeah, I know it was big. I see a lot of zeros.
Oh, man. That was too funny, though. Not funny for me, working 2 years.
Funny years later.
Totally.
Kind of a funny. Yeah, it's not funny
looking
when
back at
happens to you.
everything, it was, listen, we could go on for hours talking about our experiences at corporate America, because there was good, the bad, the ugly, man.
Right.
How about Achievers Club? Remember Achievers
That
Club?
was an example of the good.
I love when you kicked ass in sales and they rewarded you.
Right.
But I got to tell you right now, those Achiever Clubs were just fucking chaotic.
Parties.
It was just chaos out there.
Yeah. And they pretty much gave you a free hand of whatever you want to do. It's almost going to, unless you get insane out there, it'll be forgotten. We'll get, you get 3 days
You
or
don't
so.
put 2,000 salespeople
Exactly.
from around the world all in one
Right.
hotel in Hawaii.
Right. What did you think was going to happen?
What did you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Oh,
you know
man.
what's going to happen. So just don't get completely out of control, but semi out of control is acceptable, because even your boss and your boss's boss are probably right there with you.
You're right there.
Yeah. And that was a big incentive too. You had, it made you feel good. I always liked there was always the awards part, but then there was the fun part. I always just liked the fun part the best. That was after
you
the
never
awards.
even showed up. Half
Yeah.
the Achiever Club,
Well,
you never showed up to the
exactly.
events. You showed up to the parties.
Correct, but I heard that the awards were
They were
boring.
good.
That's why I missed them. But the parties afterwards were
Right.
always fun. Everybody got loose.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I know you did your time at AT&T.
Right.
You did your time at Lucent Technologies.
Right.
And eventually you finalized your career with Avaya.
Correct.
How many years total did you do?
I think the answer is it's 18 or 19. I wanted 19. I think it was I started in 1990, and I think I left officially Avaya, not completely by choice, in 2019. So I would call it 19 years.
19.
19.
I thought it was more.
No, it was not. Yeah, it was. I know, because it was the recession. It was right. The recession was 2008. It hit, and then we. I think 2009.
I've never seen anyone so relaxed between jobs. I was like, Jeff, you got to start talking to headhunters or something. I mean, have you been looking? He's like, well, it's just going to take another month.
Right. I can sum up my time between organizations in 2 words: good times. I don't know why I was worried, but I didn't let that affect me. I mean, that was just like.
No, you were worried.
I was worried.
Before
I was worried it was
Avaya.
going to happen.
And once it happened, you were like, wow, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
This is actually pretty
I lived.
cool.
Right.
So, hey, listen, just a word of advice to all those young entrepreneurs, corporate people that are just graduating, looking for jobs. Listen, take life with a grain of salt, man. Enjoy the moments you actually have, because you're going to work. You're going to find a job. You're going to land an opportunity. Trust me on that one. And no matter what, I got news for you. You'll be working for a long time. So enjoy those moments that you have the downtime, because you will land the opportunity that you're looking for.
Right. That's very good advice, Hugh, because it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought being without it. When you're with a job for almost 20 years, I mean, that's
you were stressing.
I was stressing. That's
You
what am I
wouldn't
going to
stop
do? I
calling
got to
me.
start. I didn't even have a resume. I didn't even know how to put one together, because they hired me right out of college. So I didn't even need one. I'd never been on an interview before after the 20-year mark. So, but all of that resolves itself. I think I took a couple of classes, and I went online and I practiced it a little bit. You get in your head with that kind of thing. And it's never quite as bad as you think it will be. And that's why I was so relaxed afterwards. I was like, it happened, I'm still here. I didn't stroke out or have a massive heart attack or something. And then eventually I found another job. But it was the pre being laid off that I was more worried about than the actual layoff. And things worked out fine. I mean, I like this company better than I liked, Avaya. I think NEC is a better organization. And so it worked out for the best. But it's not going to last forever, this job. But I'll go through it again. And so be it, though. But it's always, that's a good life lesson, is you just try and get out of your own head on that. It's not going to be as bad as you think it is. It might even work out for the benefit. A lot of times it does. It works out better, but you have to go through the pain first to realize that.
That's a great point, because reality, my friends out there listening, is we overthink things sometimes too much. Listen, I go through the same drill with my own kids when they were looking for jobs, and I would just tell them, listen, relax, you're going to land something. Oh, my answer right away would be, hey, listen, but you don't understand. Times have changed. I'm like, oh, my goodness.
Right.
I mean, please. Times have changed. I agree. But in that perspective, no, they haven't. You're going to land a job because, listen, Jeff and I are here talking to everyone today, just sharing experiences. You understand some of the differences in corporate America. We lived the rat race back then. We had to deliver very big numbers. There was always pressure. I would say we had more fun. Right. Today, the same pressure exists. Numbers are still there. You got to deliver. But I don't know, man, the loyalty between the let's say, compassion for the employee is gone. I'm not going to say in every company. I'm not saying that. But in many cases with the large corporations, compassion for the employee is kind of gone. Why? Because if someone at the top is telling someone down at the bottom, cut numbers, believe me, heads are going to roll right away. They don't care.
They don't care.
They don't.
Right.
I mean, years ago, like you said, we talked about it. Listen, we can't get rid of Jeff. We can't get rid of Hugo. Those guys have always produced. They've had a bad month, maybe a bad 2 months. But you know what? They're going to come back. They know the book of accounts that we always had. Today, I don't know. I also don't understand always what they're expecting, because it's not like someone is going to come in with a new book of accounts. Right. It just doesn't happen
exactly.
as much anymore.
Yeah, it's always, well, what do you think you're going to get when you downsize? Usually a lot of the downsizing is just for expense reasons. We're going to have to do more with less because the numbers aren't where we are. So we can't make the sales, we're going to cut. And that means people. And so then somebody that had 50 accounts each, now you have 100 accounts each, who's ever left, and you keep doing that, which isn't, I think, a great way to run things. But if you can't grow sales in certain cases or expand, then you have to lessen expenses. And that's usually their justification for it. But yeah, I've never seen, you gave the great example earlier about, hey, you had lined up a great sale and then were let go, and then somebody comes in and just stepped into that. Is that really the guy really knew what he was doing at that point, or just got lucky? Luck is a big part of surviving in corporate America and in the world. Luck counts for timing is a lot of things.
We talk about that in other episodes, right?
But I will say this also about corporate America, though. There's a lot of benefits to corporate, because you started in corporate America and you became an entrepreneur. I've always been a corporate guy, and it's a big safety net, though. I mean, you're selling their product, which usually has some name recognition. In my case, it's NEC, but Avaya was name recognition. AT&T, we used to say no one ever got fired for buying AT&T. They say that with a lot of companies, IBM and things. But that's true. You had a lot of name recognition and marketing. You had great benefits, and the pay was usually pretty good, and there was opportunity for promotion. A lot of cases you like the people, and you can form relationships with people. So it's a big safety net in corporate America, and that's a benefit.
It is. Listen, trust me, all of the millennials, Generation Z, young entrepreneurs that I mentor, I always say that. I'm like, listen, go work in corporate America. It's so important, right? Give it a shot. Because you got to see and live the good, the bad, the ugly in order for you to understand what it is to go on your own. Because then you take all that information, you take all that knowledge that you've picked up at corporate America, apply it to a smaller company, run it, operate like a large entity, large enterprise account, large corporation, but small business. I remember you and I always talked about the stresses, right?
Right.
You'd always be stressing because of the numbers. We had to hit quotas of $6 million in a very small territory. Those numbers, some people might say, hey, that's not that bad. Let me tell you, those are insane numbers. And they only went up. They never went down. And I would tell Jeff after I left Avaya, I would say, Jeff, I still continue to have stresses. It's just very different. and my numbers are also not so inflated. I don't gotta deliver numbers to Wall Street anymore.
Right.
You know,
Right.
stock market. The stock number.
That's a big.
It's
yeah,
huge. It's
that's
huge.
right.
It plays a big part in the decision making at the top.
Right, absolutely. But it is a great place. Going from a corporate environment to a small business, I think, is a great shift because you could also see everything that corporations do wrong that are very difficult for them to change, that a small business can change almost instantaneously. So one of the frustrations of corporate America is you can see better ways of doing things, and you might suggest that or try that, and they're going to say, hey, well, we can't do it that way. That's not the way we do it here. Or it's going to take, that's 10 departments. We would have to get the buy-in for that. And you see this all the time in companies, Netflix versus Blockbuster. The writing is on the wall that Blockbuster is not doing things. People don't like paying late fees. They don't like, they don't like the fact that they can only rent a video for a certain amount of days, et cetera, or that you can't even get the video you want. Then all of a sudden Netflix figures out better ways to do it, and Blockbuster says, yeah, I don't think that's going to fly. We're doing it a certain way. That's the way we've always done it, but that's not the game anymore, and it changes. But larger corporations have a much more difficult time shifting when they need to shift.
And we talked about that.
Yeah.
Listen, look at the smaller companies, medium and small companies during COVID. If you weren't able to pivot very quickly, you're not going to survive, especially during COVID. You have to be flexible. Now, the advantages of being a small, medium organization is that you can do that. You can pivot on the fly sometimes. It doesn't matter if you're just in one industry and all of a sudden you need to kind of shift a little bit and find another product line that kind of suits the times that you're dealing with. Like in our situation with healthcare products, right? We had all the international contacts in our company that I'm working with, and we were able to pivot immediately and contact all the international people and say, listen, we need this, that, and the other thing for New York City. Shit's blowing up right now in New York. COVID is serious. So we were able to just realign ourselves quickly. Now, a large corporation, they have a hard time doing this.
Right.
They can't pivot so quick.
Right. Even if they know what the answer is, they have a hard time getting there.
I always say it's like a snowball, just rolling it down a hill, and it becomes this large, massive ball rolling down a mountain. You can't rebuild that thing. It's just going in one direction.
Right.
You can make little adjustments, right?
Absolutely. And in a world where technology changes so quickly, COVID's a perfect example. I think a lot of companies are not going to go back to the office.
Oh, God, no.
Virtual office it was always growing, but COVID pushed it, accelerated it. And a lot of companies have realized, hey, I can work from home. The technology is there. My people like it better. I'm saving on rent. Why wouldn't I do this? But they weren't necessarily going to do it as quickly before COVID. COVID pushed them there, but they're doing it, and they're not going back. That's how quickly the world can change.
And we're going to see the effect of that.
Yeah.
We're going to see the effect. I'm very curious and concerned that in the next few months, let's give it 6 to 8 more months, and we're going to start seeing some large buildings up for sale.
Right.
Availability. Listen, I don't want to talk about like strip malls. I don't want to talk about actual malls, retail industry. There's going to be a lot of changes.
Right. Absolutely. And you got to be able to fly with that. That's the world that we live in. You got to be able to pivot very quickly and see it coming. Even if things look rock solid today, you got to have a plan B for tomorrow that it's not always going to be that way. And the companies that seem to do the best on that are the ones that have that plan ready to go and start to pivot when they see it. Even if they're dominating the industry today, they might not tomorrow. By tomorrow, I mean tomorrow. I don't mean 10 years tomorrow.
That's right.
I mean like a couple of months tomorrow. That's how quickly it can change in certain cases.
So Zivs, let me ask you this.
Go.
As we close up 30 minutes that we've been chit-chatting here and sharing some information on corporate America then and now, what did you like about then and what do you like about now?
Back then, I liked the whole vibe of the company. I liked the law. I looked out for the company looked out for me, and I liked that. It was a safe space, and I felt I did some of my best work back then. And it was the atmosphere that they created that I liked. I kind of liked that. Even if it wasn't for me a job for life, it just felt good. And I loved going to work every day in that environment.
Beth Hendler, if you're hearing this,
right,
kudos to you.
I would throw Matt O'Leary down there as that. It was just I used to say to my friends, we might be out over the weekend or something like that, and maybe Sunday night comes around, they're like, oh man, I can't believe I got to go back to work on Monday. And I would say, why would you be dreading that? I'm looking forward to it. Monday, it's gonna be a great week. It was just a great atmosphere. Maybe that was just the group I was in. Those were AT&T days, but it was a great vibe. What I like about today, though, the technology and the way things move, it's a different world.
Well,
with
it
that.
just makes it easier.
Makes
to
it
work.
easier.
Yeah, no
I mean,
doubt.
you didn't have those tools back then. I mean, you can do I can work remotely. I can work from a beach. I can do a lot more. I'm a lot more efficient, and I'm not on the cutting edge of technology by any means.
He just sells the technology.
I sell it. That doesn't mean I know how to use it. But that's a big benefit of, every day there's a different tool that comes out or something that's going to help you make it easier for you to communicate with your customers, et cetera. And that's why you have the ability to work virtual office so easily now, where no one can even tell that you're virtual office. So I would say that's a big benefit now that we didn't have then. Back then, it just feels to me that in the 90s, technology did not move quite as quickly, where every X amount of months, something is changing. There's a new innovation. Back then, it seemed like you had some changes, like we talked about. Cell phones, email was starting and things, but it took years and years to get to that point.
No
so
doubt.
I would say that's one of the big benefits now.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, back at corporate America, if I'm talking about then, I did like the loyalty. I did like the camaraderie that we had amongst our teams. I liked the competition. Our sales guys often do. I also like the rewards. When you kicked butt, you received a nice invite to the Achievers Club at a beautiful destination. I like all that. And I'm not saying it went away, but I will say those large budgets that corporate America used to dump on Achievers and other events, they have definitely gotten cut back. Today, the ease of being able to work efficiently and effectively from any part of the world. I mean, just before COVID hit, I was in Ecuador. No one knew I was there. I was working from a beautiful apartment overlooking a gorgeous ocean on the Pacific coast. I was connected to my office every morning. Take advantage of unified communications today. And today it's understood better than ever, right? Just like you said, during COVID, many of the medium corporations, large corporations, I'd say they were already set up in a way. And even they found little things that they needed to adjust to have their employees work effectively from home. But the medium and the small enterprise now understand the benefits of truly maximizing on unified communications.
Right.
The fact that everything is on a mobile app, on a tablet, on your laptop, you can have any phone call you want, transfer from a tablet to a cell phone, and have a video conference at the same time. It's magnificent.
Yeah, you can't beat that. You can't beat that.
Can't.
I'll tell you, one other thing I thought of that I do miss is, and this is a benefit of being in the office, is the relationships. I think I mentioned this earlier, that you form in that we met, 22, 23 years ago, and we're still friends. I still hang out with guys that I knew back then. In today's world, when everybody's virtual and you leave a job, those relationships a lot of times end, because you're not seeing each other in the office every day. You're not going out to lunch every day. You're not going out for drinks after work, whatever you want to do after work, or it could be a sporting event or something like that. So that is that bonding type experience. And it was also a big benefit for help and things like
no
that.
doubt.
You're a new guy today. They kind of just throw you in there and you got to figure it out. Back then, you had people you could walk up to. You used to do it to me. I used to do it with people and say, hey, look, how do we really do this? The boss says that we're supposed to do this. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. How do we really do it? What is and they would,
Everybody went to Jeff Zivi.
Exactly. And I went to people. That's how I learned. People used to say, hey, how come you're mentoring people so often? And I said, because people did it for me. That's how I learned a lot of stuff. I didn't learn it by reading the corporate manuals. I went around to people and say, is there a better way? And a lot of times there was. So that I miss too. But that's a trade-off. But I don't think I could go back to an office. I've been virtual now for over 20. It's got to be 25 years. That ship has sailed.
Oh man! I remember when I first went virtual. Jeff said, "Listen, I'm going to just give you a bit of advice. Once you go virtual, you don't go back." Yeah. And he wasn't kidding. But listen, I agree, Jeff. And I just want to thank you again for coming to our studios here in Flanders, New Jersey, and being a part of T20E World. I hope you come back. We'll talk about another topic. And for our listeners out there, hope this was beneficial. Listen, just sharing our own personal experiences over the last half hour. But you know what? It's a good time for you to take advantage of what's out there, the flexibility of working in corporate America today. And, although we talked a lot about the compassion and also the loyalty, to a degree, it's still there if you find that company and you make that fit. You got to hustle and you got to find where you can make your niche and make it work for you. Again, it's all about happiness. If you're walking in every day, you better love what you do, Right or wrong?
Right, 100% right.
Thanks again for listening to T20E World. This is Jeff Zivi and Hugo checking out.